Sephiros, and today I'm going to be showing you some cool ways to create exponential rhythms and beyond. So what do I mean by an exponential rhythm? If I search exponential rhythm in my sample pack, so it's that kind of stuff. It's like those stretchy sounds. Now, let me go into this. I'm going to grab phase plant. There's so many different ways to create this kind of effect. So first, let me just touch on some simple like math stuff. I'm not a mathematician, so I'm not going to really be able to explain this super well, but to the best of my understanding, I'll try to illustrate what an exponential rhythm is actually. So if we get an LFO and just do like a sawdown, and I map this to, I don't know, the pitch. If I then have another one of these LFOs that's just on one shot, and I'll make it long, and then I control the speed of this one, someone may call that an exponential rhythm, but technically it's linear. See how this is a linear line here? So if I were to make this exponential, I believe it would be something like this, you know, like a curved line like this. And I believe that this, I think, would be logarithmic. So, you know, most of the time when someone calls something an exponential rhythm, it's something that's speeding up or slowing down over time, and they're not actually referring to the specific type of transfer curve that's happening. Like that's an S-curve, you know? So this is the first technique right here, having an LFO control the speed of another LFO. And you can do the same thing with something like operator, where maybe you can't LFO the speed of another LFO very easily inside the synth. But what you can do is just automate the LFO. So you know, you can draw in some automation, and then you'll get that cool effect. So there's a lot of cool ways to create this effect. That is the first technique, is just finding things that are going at a speed. Make sure it's set to a free running rate instead of a synced rate, and then modulate the speed of it in some way. That's the first technique. Now, you can kind of do this in some more interesting ways. You can get some of these effects sometimes with like beating between oscillators. So if I do like two saw waves, I detune them. And then if I map this to the tune of one of them, see how it kind of speeds up like that? That's a pretty cool effect. That's another kind of exponential or speeding up, slowing down type effect. That's a good riser right there. You can do this also with like FM synthesis. So maybe we do sine waves here, and one of these will be our operator, so inaudible. And then do like a phase modulation. And then same thing, you could like modulate the tuning of this a little bit. You know, so you can combine these effects. Maybe like this, where this will like do the amount of FM. And then we could modulate the speed of this LFO too. So that's a cool effect. The next one is the next one that I really like to use is any sort of time-based effect. So what do I mean by that? Well, if I get a snare, you just get a snare. Zach Countryman, shout out. Put a snare here and turn it down. So I get a time-based effect, like let's say a flanger. Any time-based effect is usually made up of a bunch of delays or something like that. It deals with copying the signal and repeating it over time. So if I turn the feedback up, see how we have that kind of tone happening? So remember what I said about synced versus free rate. So if I turn this rate onto hertz, it'll be a free rate. So that's actually not a flanger, it's a phaser, because I have it set to phaser here, but now I can automate this rate, this frequency. So we could make like some crazy little speed down effects. Like that. And, you know, I could like bounce that out. And I'll also try to tell you like why I make these sounds and why I like these sounds. So I really like these sounds for little fill moments. So I have a rhythm here, just a simple beat. So maybe right before this kick, these exponential rhythms have a lot of momentum. So I could maybe reverse this and then have this come into the first kick, or this third kick drum right here, and it'll kind of like create a lot of momentum leading into that kick. And sometimes if you leave a little gap, it works too. Could like pitch that up. Yeah, so I like to like put them as little lead-ins and sometimes also as little tails. Like they work good as tails too. So maybe the snare, we could like take this and use it as like a snare tail. So they make really cool effects for adding a lot of like momentum, because the rhythm of it is speeding up or slowing down over time. So it creates this kind of almost like a whiplash kind of feeling. So let's grab our phaser and use it as a flanger instead now. So let's go flanger. I'm going to delete this automation. So this phaser has different like LFO shapes. So if we do like a saw up or a saw down, we could start to get some of that movement. So we could like maybe automate a little bit off the end of that. So time-based effects, this doubler is another time-based effect, and then probably the most famous time-based effect, oh, we already have a snare here, is like a delay. So you can do this with delays too, and it'll do this pitching and exponential rhythm thing. So I'll just lock these to be the same here, and then turn the feedback up. So if I scrub through this speed of the delay, so that is that's a cool effect for creating some more of those kind of slow down effects or speed up effects. And if you don't want it to pitch around, you can change this mode from repitch to like fade. And that'll give you a lot of cool kind of glitchy effects. It kind of has like this lo-fi sound to it, and then jump, I think. Let's get that one. That one's pretty cool. So yeah, time-based effects like delays, flangers, phasers. These make for like really nice risers. So I could like reverse this and put it at the end of the bar and have it be like a little riser coming into the next part. So yeah, the time-based effects is a good way. The next way that I really like to do this is with an arpeggiator. So we get a kick drum. Yeah, a little XNG kick drum action, and then arp. And you can use this arp speed to create kind of like a scrubbing, kind of like a stretching sound here, by just automating the rate. So that's a very nice kind of way to do it. And you can do it with like all kinds of sounds. So maybe I could group this and also put a foley sound in here. So maybe I'll go to like foley perks and get some sort of high-end percussive thing. And it's really fun to combine these techniques. So I could get a delay. Let's go for the grain delay this time. So we'll start to combine some of these techniques together. So I could modulate the dry wet to come in, and then remember the time if you set it to free running. So we could do something like that, where it like goes from a tight time to a more open time. And we could maybe start to pitch the delays too by somewhat. So yeah, I could freeze that and flatten it. And once you freeze it and flatten it, it gives you a lot of flexibility in terms of like what you want to do with it. So like that's a really long sound right there. So obviously I could like put it as like a build up. These sounds are kind of goofy, so I'm going to get rid of them. But, you know, pitching it up and down. Yeah, I like that sound. So yeah, that is leading up to the next way that you can do this, and that would be with granular sampling. So I'll get a Max for Live Granulator 2. And then we can put a sound in here, like say a drum loop. Drum loops are really good for this. Yeah, something like this. And then just make like a MIDI note. And see how it's kind of like the Arpeggiator, like it's playing the sample over and over again, but now we can scrub through the sample. So I love doing that, like scrubbing backwards over a snare. So we can maybe scrub backwards over a snare. Oh, that's the grain size. Hold on. We want to automate the file position. And then, so that's already kind of doing like an exponential thing. And if I really wanted to be mathematically exponential, I could curve this a little bit. Or maybe logarithmic instead. So that's pretty cool. And then also can modulate the grain size a bit to either get smaller or bigger. Let's try getting bigger. Oh, that's getting smaller. Let's go this way. G Jones. So yeah, I love using Granulator or any granular plugin to create these cool kind of exponential rhythms. And these, especially doing these with snares, works really good in beats, where you can kind of lead into the snare with it. So it's really fun to go into audio rate and out of audio rate. So what do I mean by that? Well, so maybe we'll replace this sound with this new type of sound that I'm talking about. So for this, I want kind of a more tonal drum loop. So I'm going to search Sephiros. And these are some Eurorack drums that I made. So let's delete the automation here, and let's make a really small grain. And what this will do is this will give us a tone. And if I select this clip and then right-click Show Modulation, I can draw in some modulation to this. So first it's kind of like doing a melody, right? But then maybe right here, I have it turn into a rhythmic thing. Maybe just put an 808 underneath it. I know, it doesn't sound like an 808, but just bear with me. Never mind. 808 bass. So the cool thing about using modulation is it is inside the clip, so you can move this clip around and you don't have to worry about having the lock enabled or not enabled or whatever, but also it gives you the ability to still tweak this knob even though you're modulating it, versus if you had drawn in automation in the automation view, then when you go to change this, it screws your automation up and it gets rid of your automation. So that's why modulation is good for certain things. And for this, I used this so that I could still tweak this grain knob to tune this little melody to like maybe this 808 right here. So if I just solo these two. So we could kind of combine these techniques again, where like maybe I'll put this on fade and then just kind of turn the feedback up on this delay, and then at the end of this also just kind of have this tighten up instead. So it's like stretching out and tightening it up at the same time. So yeah, it's really fun to play around with these techniques. Yeah, there's a few more, you know, like with in terms of modular. Another fun way to play with this is similar to what the arpeggiator is doing. You can modulate the speed of a clock, and this opens up a lot of possibilities for like much deeper sound design. So maybe I'll just get an LFO, and let's use this wavetable LFO. If we turn this to a square wave, then we can use it as a clock, and then we can use this frequency knob. We can just modulate that that frequency knob here. So we can kind of modulate this. Maybe I'll do a MIDI clip, put a note, and then we could tie all kinds of stuff to that clock. So, you know, like an envelope. So let's see, a gate from this wavetable output. And then we could use that to control the VCA. CV out to control the VCA. And then the VCA we can put into our mixer, and then the audio will go out. And then we could get an oscillator. Could use like this one, which is like a beads emulation. So we could do output. And actually we can go out into another VCA and then out. That way we can control this with the MIDI note input. So we get the MIDI note here, and then another ADSR. I'll just duplicate this, and then CV out to control the gain of this, and this gate to control this. So now if we loop this note, so now we have that exponential clock going, so we can tie it to more stuff via this envelope. Give it a little more release, maybe. And then we could like have a sample and hold, you know, to kind of generate stuff from that trigger. So with our LFO here, our wavetable LFO, which is like our clock because it's doing square wave, we could take a cable and go into the clock input here on our sample and hold, and now every time that clock hits, it'll trigger a random value, and we could use that to maybe sequence the there's a way to modulate the algorithm here. I think it might be the FM if there's no let me see. Let me try to figure this out real quick. What? Why did modulating the pitch break my patch? I'm going to take the vault per octave out of the MIDI. Could like modulate some more things. That's kind of a cool sound. Let's record that. Yeah, so once you take this concept into Modular, it really opens up a lot more possibilities. And same for like using this with Faceplant or whatever. So yeah, I can just delete this VCV rack. So that's kind of a cool little sound. Let's see. reminds me. My last and actually one of my favorite ways to do this is with the Ableton Auto Pan. So with the Auto Pan, you can turn it on to Hertz instead of synced. And then you can use this to create like an exponential rhythm over pretty much anything, and it goes pretty fast. So listen to this. It goes almost in an audio rate. Like that's pretty much audio rate. That's it is actually audio rate. See, 60 hertz. Like the low E note is like 38 hertz or something. So you actually can use this kind of as a ring mod. So I could like scrub this rate, and then automate the amount so it just kind of comes in. And then we could probably use a ring mod too. Speaking of ring mods, there's just so many things with an LFO in it that you can use for this. But with the ring mod, you don't even need to use this LFO if you just have it detuned. Or I'm sorry, if you have the dry wet at 50% and then you start to detune it by this fine or coarse amount, you'll start getting some of that kind of phasing. And if you automate this speed, you can get more of that kind of stretching effect. So let's do it here. See that? And these are really fun to just like automate along with a melody. Cool. So yeah, just a little weird halftime loop there. Trying to demonstrate exponential rhythms. I call them stretchy sounds because it's not necessarily exponential, linear, or logarithmic at any given point. It could be any of those. So I like to just call them stretchy sounds, or yeah, stretchy sounds. That's kind of the sound that that's the vibe it gives me, is that like time is stretching. You know, it's like because linear time is just like an eighth note going, and then when you start to stretch time, it's like time is slowing down or speeding up, and that's kind of the effect I'm going for here, is like that time space is warping and shifting and stretching and you know. So yeah, I hope you learned something interesting and got some cool ideas for sound design in the future. If you want some of my sounds, I have a Patreon. That's Sephiros, 5EPHRO5, thousands of sounds for $6. I also offer private lessons if you want feedback on your tracks or just to learn more personally tailored techniques. And yeah, like and subscribe. And until next time, big up. Peace.